Hi, everyone, and welcome to the CUD Hub podcast. My name is Eva, and I will be your host. Today, we're happy to welcome Dr. Avraam to the show. He'll be talking about a recent workshop held at CUD about mastering the Systemic Literature Review, SLR, a practical guide. Hi, Dr. Avraam. Welcome.
Hi, Eva. Hi, CUD. Thank you very much for inviting me to this podcast.
Yes.
Yes.
So, for those who don't know you yet, can you please introduce yourself and give us a bit about a background about you?
For sure. My name is Avraam. I am from Greece. I have been living in UAE the last 11 years. Actually, I started my career in companies, in industry. Before, if I remember well, 25 years ago, my field of expertise is strategy and quantitative methods. So this is why, our Dean of Research, Professor Cohen, asked me, to deliver a workshop about systematic literature review. Is very important systematic literature review for not only, for business researchers, but for all the researchers and practitioners.
It sounds very exciting. So tell us a little bit about this workshop that was held at CUD.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, systematic literature review or literature review is one of the most important steps in conducting research. Why? Because first of all, we need a clear idea about the previous studies. We have to identify the research gaps, what is important, not only, for researchers, but what is important for policymakers, what is important for practitioners, for companies. So the first step always is to understand and, dive into the literature review, what is available from previous studies, in plain words.
That's really interesting. I remember as a student when I was doing my undergrad doing literature reviews in my domain. And I remember whenever we would be assigned a literature review, all the students would look at themselves and be like, uh-oh, we have to do a lit review. So can you tell us a little bit about, in the literature review, what are some of these best practices and practical tips for conducting a literature review? How far back does one go in the literature? These kind of things that maybe students or even, academics should know, in your opinion.
Thank you, Eva. This is a very important question. Actually, the problem is, many times it's not clear, the process. In sciences, there is always a process, a scientific process. The same for systematic literature review or for a literature review. The first step is to identify the research questions. To identify the research questions and then identify the research gaps, okay, you have to review the previous studies. So the first step is to review the previous studies, but the question is, how can I do it? Many times, it's not clear for students, even, for researchers, because there are many different techniques. For example, one way is to download some review papers. Why review papers are very important? Because you have to extract the key keywords, the most important keywords. For example, if your research is about artificial intelligence and customer services, you have, to find out all these keywords, the important keywords, relating to this study. Then you can use these keywords to download papers, studies from databases. This is the next step. So, for example, in business, we use Web of Science, Scopus, Elsevier. Okay, these are, the most famous. By using the keywords, it's easy, to request from the different databases to bring back all the important, studies, and studies actually, relating to your topic. So what actually we did in the previous workshop, we discussed how to identify the research questions, research gaps, how to define your keywords, and then how to use these keywords, to download previous studies, in your, field of expertise, in your research, in your, area.
Thank you so much. That's very comprehensive and that's very useful. I'm sure that actually, if you tell us a little bit about who attended the workshop, this information I'm sure was shared with the guests. Can you tell us a little bit about the audience who came to the workshop, what the experience was like, what they took away from this workshop?
Yes, for sure. Mainly, the participants were coming from different schools. Not only from School of Management, but from other, schools from communication, architecture, because, the literature review and the process of conducting, a systematic literature review is the same for all the different colleges and for all the different fields. So we discussed some main rules and a general process, how actually to extract your information from previous studies. And I think it was very interesting because after the workshop, many different, colleagues, people who are teaching, and for sure they are making their research. They asked me some extra questions, how to use some new tools like artificial intelligence. This was the second part, actually, of the workshop. We discussed how the new generative artificial intelligence can help us, because it's not like before. Now there are some advanced, tools, technologies, and we have to use them.
Okay, interesting. So would you say, based on, my understanding of what you're saying, that the literature review is essentially like the foundational level of conducting research?
Absolutely.
You cannot conduct research without first reviewing the literature.
Because, yes, you have to know what you are looking for. Are you looking for, for example, services and satisfaction and performance of the company? What are you looking for? This is the first thing. The second one, why this topic is important. Mm-hmm. Not only for the other researchers. Why it's important, for policymakers, why it's important for companies. For example, a very nice topic is about COVID, but COVID, there are so many studies, is not so interesting anymore. It's not a topical, a topic, no.
Are there different types of literature reviews? Because in your workshop, it's called the review of a systemic mastering the systemic literature review. Is there other types, or is this pretty standard in terms of?
Yes, there are different types. Systematic is the most important. Why? Because it's more, it's a comprehensive. Okay, you can identify what is important, the gaps. For sure, you can, use some semi-systematic or some other types more narrative-oriented. Okay, but again, depends on what you are looking for. In our day, systematic literature review is very important because we can extract very important information about the gaps. And gaps in a practical point of view, not only, the old days, what was important was actually only, what the other researchers are looking for. No, now, there is a collaboration between academia and industry. This is very important.
So would you say that in conducting a lit review, based on what you're saying, that it's equally as important to understand the research, but also to identify the gaps and potentially the recurring gaps in every research, so that perhaps as a researcher, you can then address that gap if it's, a common thread across multiple.
Right, yes. It's a dynamic process. Many times we explain this process as step by step. Okay, but practically speaking, from one step to another, there is a dynamic relationship. Means what? Yes, we are working to identify the gaps, and then we are moving to identify research questions, and then, to download articles. But, this process is dynamic. Means what? Many times we have to go back and, make some changes. We have to remove some keywords, for example, or add some new keywords. This is the real beauty of research. It's not static, okay? It's not static. For sure, it's more dynamic. And many times we have to discuss with other researchers because, as you said, is the most important step. It's not possible, to go out for data collection without having a clear idea about what you are looking for. No. If you do that, then you will waste your time, your money, and it's not easy, to go back later after having, collected your data and say, oh, I want to change some questions. No, it's not working. Sometimes takes time. It's not so easy. The good news is that in nowadays we can use some new technologies like artificial intelligence. Okay, but we have to use it in the right way. There is, a myth here that artificial intelligence can do everything. No. Or there is a magic, way, or a magic wand like Harry Potter. No, it's not working in this way. Technology can support us, but it's not possible, to do the job, we have to carry out.
Can you tell me a little bit about the workshop and like if there were tips or in a nutshell to really keep in mind, like key things to keep in mind when conducting the lit review, what would you say are the top aspects or elements to keep in mind for a young researcher or a student who's about to start in literature review?
This is a very important question. Actually, I shared a process, different steps. And the first step always is to download some review papers.
How many would you say?
Oh, depends. Sometimes it's not possible to find more than a couple of them. Sometimes perhaps there are many. If there are many, this is a sign that perhaps this topic is not so interesting, is not, so the originality is not.
It's a bit saturated.
Yes, it is a bit saturated, indeed. But in average, if you download, as a rule of thumb, 5, maximum 10, I think is more than enough. But again, depends. Now, for example, this period I'm working on a topic and I found only one, the last 20 years. This is a good sign. Why? Because there is a gap there. We need more, review papers. We need to go deeper. We have to understand what is going on, the new trends, and then we have to work on them by collecting data and so on. So this is the first step. The second step is by using artificial intelligence, we can summarize the review articles and identify some of the areas plus keywords. There are many different AI tools.
Are they specific to literature review?
Yes, many, not only one. In my workshop, I discuss around, I think, 8 or 9 different AI tools. Different AI tools, for research questions, different, to identify keywords, different, to summarize the most influential articles. And they are different, to extract information because, a scientific study or a peer-reviewed paper is very long, okay? You have introduction, literature review, methodology, analysis of the data and implication, either managerial or practical or both of them. So sometimes it's over 20-25 pages. So just imagine if you download, let's say 100 or 200 different papers, it takes time, to go through and extract information. Artificial intelligence is very important because can help us to extract the most important information. And then we have to identify the most influential articles. My humble opinion is these articles, we have to read it carefully, very carefully, because these articles, are very important for our study. We have to understand what is important and what is not important. Which areas are, we have to work more, or which areas are, more important for the industry, and so on.
Okay, and so what would be the final steps of completing and finalizing your literature review? Things that you have to make sure are in place before you submit this as a legitimate review?
But there's another one good question. When we have decided about the keywords, then we have to download the different studies using different databases. Then we can extract all, the articles from the databases. And the first step is to select which articles are, related to our study. We can do that through the title and the abstract. And the next step is, for sure, we'll exclude some of them. The final number, of the articles, we have to go through the main text and make sure that, yes, this article is important for my study. So we have different inclusion and exclusion criteria. Another one very important is the period. Okay, when we have decided, and we explain in our workshop how to do it practically, because we use Scopus, specific keywords, we selected some criteria, we included excluded articles, and finally the last step is to download them. There is a way to do it, how to download it using either an Excel file or ideally artificial intelligence. The only challenge is the cost. The cost is a bit high. But sometimes there is no other way, because just imagine if you have more than 200 or 300 papers, how are you going to do it? It's not so easy. So we have to use, technology. So we explain, the whole process from step 1 to step 7, okay, many different, sub-steps in between. And we explain practically how researchers, can use the technology, the databases, and finally extract the right number of articles. By saying the right number, I mean the right articles for their research. Because sometimes, the number is very big, but many of them, are not important for your topic.
Mm-hmm. So really, what I'm understanding is that AI is a very important tool to leverage in conducting the literature review. And I know sometimes in academia, when we think about AI, it can have a negative connotation, but in this sense, to maximize your output and in order to conduct your literature review as efficiently as possible, AI is very important.
AI is extremely important, and you are absolutely right. The problem is there is big resistance, to change. Again, is the way you are going to use technology. Just imagine, let's say nowadays you want to write a book, and you say, I'm very romantic, I'm going to use the, typewriter, the old one. For sure you can do it, but I think Microsoft Word or the other, softwares are much, much better than using, the traditional typewriters. I love the traditional, noise from click, 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 all of this, but technology is important, and we have to understand how it's possible to use it. Again, it's not possible to use technology or only technology and do all the different steps and finally, give you a paper, publish it and become very famous. No, technology will help you, nothing more. But the help is huge, and nowadays we need it because the competition is very high around the world, that. And we need, to be more specific. We need to improve our effectiveness and efficiency.
Great. Can we expect any more workshops from you at CUD in various topics?
The good news is, yes, not only from me, from many, amazing faculty members from different colleges. We have, to say that as a university, we have a very big number of very famous researchers, very, strong, people from industry. So yes, I know that our Dean of Research, Professor Cohen, has organized a number of different workshops for different, in different topics, because, there is only one or two. So yes, and this is a very good, initiative from our university, and is, I think the most important is we have the opportunity to communicate. Mm-hmm. Something that is not easy nowadays because I am busy, you are busy, I have many meetings, classes, but because of this workshop, we can communicate and finally we know each other. Mm-hmm. This is, I think, the most important, achievement, from these workshops.
I agree. When I was a student, we didn't have any workshops on how to conduct a literature review. We were given a literature review and told, do this. And if these types of workshops were available to us where we can engage with scholars, experts in their fields, it would have definitely elevated and maximized our academic achievements. So I think this is a wonderful opportunity for students, for peers, for other academics to partake in, and for the community as a whole. So I want to thank you so much for taking the initiative and for joining us today. And we'd love to have you back anytime.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I really appreciate it, and I feel very happy and proud because sometimes I'm able to contribute to our university and to our society. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's been fascinating. Thank you.